this is where trust comes in. I think when it comes to purity, we definitely have to have a level of trust in God that He knows what He's doing. He designed us in a specific way for a reason, and having that trust and faith in Him that if we follow the path He has laid down for us, we will be taken care of. I've heard men say that it is natural for a man to be more promiscuous because they're wired that way and because they're not meant and designed to be with one woman. And so women are not supposed to be promiscuous, but it's natural for men to be promiscuous. And that ideology is actually so demonic. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Culture Shock podcast. I'm super excited to be back. I did cut my hair. I don't know if you noticed, but it's chopped. I'm trying to give Nara Smith, I'm trying to give Bobbiana. I'm going off of a old silk press that's like 3 days old because I don't really know how to do a silk press. So if any of you guys have any natural hair tips to maintain my hair, let me know in the comments. But yeah, today's topic is going to be about purity, which you can already see from the title. But this topic was heavy on my heart this week, and I was like, Lord, why do you want me to talk about purity? Like, that's just such a broad subject, right? But he kind of broke it down to me in a couple of different aspects, which I'll kind of go through today and just let you know my thoughts and my opinions about purity and just what the Bible has to say about it. As always, on this podcast, our goal is to talk about things that we go through and struggle with in culture and see how it relates back to the Bible, how it relates back to Jesus, and all of that good stuff. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. So when it comes to purity, I think with our culture, especially within the Christian community, we automatically think sexual purity. A lot of people are like, hey, I'm on a purity journey and I am abstaining from sexual activities and all of that. And so that's kind of like the concept of purity, like keeping yourself pure till marriage, which is absolutely an essential part of purity. But I'm sure you've heard this before, but purity is more than just not engaging in sexual activities before marriage. Purity is about a heart posture, right? It's about being pure in heart. I know Matthew 5:8 says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God," right? Purity is more of a heart posture, and God is drawn and close to people who are pure in heart. And I know a lot of people, when it comes to being pure in heart, a lot of people might assume that that has to do with being perfect and that has to do with your actions always aligning, but it's more of a heart posture you take. And when you come across situations or whenever you do something that is outside of God's order, like, what is your heart towards it? And so when it comes to purity within the heart and the mind, I think for me, it's something that I am now realizing day and day to pray consciously about, for God to renew my heart and to renew my mind to have a Christ-like mind, because it's very easy when you're living in your flesh to just succumb to your natural cadence of doing things and the natural way you react to doing things. Sometimes within our flesh, we might have seeds of jealousy, envy, anger, just seeds of things that are not of God and that are not pure. And in those situations, and when I come across those type of emotions in me, I always try to make it a point to pray to God to not harden my heart towards Him, towards people, towards situations, towards environments I'm put in, because it's very easy when I'm living in my flesh and when I'm not living in a pure state of mind or having a pure heart to fall into those patterns of envy, jealousy, and just things that are not fruits of the spirit. And so I'll give you an example of how purity is working in my heart and in my mind. For instance, when there's a situation comes up with a friend, for instance, my flesh and my natural cadence is to assume that what they have done, disrespected me, and not necessarily address it, just kind of like push it under the rug and just pull back. Like, that's my natural response, is to pull back. And when you pull back and you don't address things, things can be planted in your mind and in your heart of, oh, they don't really love you, or they did this maliciously, or whatever. And so when I'm in a friendship situation to where, we have disagreements and we have misunderstanding, I always try to make it a point to check my heart and check my heart posture, right? When someone does something to me, or even when I do something to someone, checking my heart posture always reminds me that this is someone I love, and they didn't necessarily do things to offend me intentionally. They love me, and I'll just holding on to that truth rather than letting the devil plant seeds or ideas in my heart or in my mind that are not good towards my friend or my family member. When it comes to purity of the heart, it's always about having a heart posture that desires God and desires the things of God over our flesh and over sin and over the things that we're tempted to do, right? It's like when you have a pure state of mind, you put that above the temptation, the sin. And so recently I've been making it a point to ask God to help renew my heart, to want to have a heart that desires him over my flesh and desires him over the temptation or to sin, because it is very hard when you're trying to fight your flesh. And this is where the conversation of purity comes in, when people are like, they just want to be pure, but they keep falling into the same patterns and into the same systems and rhythms of sin or of just things that are not of God. But instead of trying to fight that specific situation, just having the heart posture that I want to have a pure heart and mind. I want to desire the things of God. And the more I desire the things of God, the more I am less and less wanting and drawn towards my flesh and the things of this world and sin. And so once I had that perspective change, that, hey, purity is not just about one specific topic, right? It's a heart posture. It's the way I think. It's my thoughts and taking my thoughts captive as they come. Even in my mind, like when I do have, thoughts that are not of God or that are of my flesh, the reaction time for me to capture those thoughts and speak life over myself and say, these are not thoughts of God, these are thoughts of evil, and I have the mind of Christ, and speak those things over myself. That is me trying to practice having a pure mind. And purity can also be, related to sexual purity, right? And so I think in a culture that is over sexualized, and having an individual who is waiting for marriage and is saving themselves and wanting to be pure with their bodies, it's kind of like an anomaly in today's society, right? And when you have things like try before you buy and all these different things that are being pushed and all these different narratives, but for us as Christians, understanding that, hey, we're not just saving ourselves for marriage just to save ourselves for marriage. We're saving ourselves because we want to honor God with our body, with our mind, with our time, with our whole being, right? For me, I don't just look at it as I'm not having sex before marriage. I look at it as I understand that my body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, right? And my body is not mine. And I'm living as a living sacrifice unto the Lord every day. And my desire before I get married is to learn more about God, is to grow close to God, is to honor God and respect God with my body. And so I'm not going to do anything that crosses that boundary that I have between me and God. And it's definitely hard, especially in today's society. And it's also hard to be like, hey, I'm just not gonna have sex before marriage, but I'm gonna do all these other stuff, right? That's not the mentality. If we put the focus on just not having sex before marriage, that also introduces the idea that all these other things are good. And you can do all these other things as long as you don't have sex before marriage, which is not the case, right? I'm learning to have the heart posture of not just that I'm saving myself for marriage, but I am honoring the fact that my body is a temple and I am keeping myself, not just because I'm keeping myself for my husband, but also for my self respect, also to honor the will of God in my life. And, not being pure sexually comes with a lot of drama and a lot of things, right? And we hear this all the time. People talk about soul ties and, different things like that. But when God puts certain things in place for us, He's not putting it in place just to hinder us and just to have us not have fun. Those laws that are in place are actually to protect us. Especially as women, being pure sexually is not just to hinder you from having fun or hinder you from living it up in your 20s or your youth, but it's to protect you because God is the one who created you as a woman. He designed you. He created sex. He created intimacy. He created your body as a woman, and He created men as well. And when He's telling you, don't do this except you're in the covering of marriage and the protection of marriage. He's not just saying that just so that you don't have fun. He's saying that so that you can be protected from hurt, from disappointment, from trauma, from just a lot of things that the enemy can take and twist it and just make your life way harder and way more miserable than it needs to be. This is where trust comes in. I think when it comes to purity, we definitely have to have a level of trust in God that He knows what He's doing. He designed us in a specific way for a reason, and having that trust and faith in Him that if we follow the path He has laid down for us, we will be taken care of. In Proverbs, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and all your mind, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He'll make your path straight. And that's just the heart posture of being pure, physically and mentally. It's like, I am trusting you with all my heart, with all my soul. For the guys as well, I think when the topic of purity comes in, a lot of guys are like, okay, yeah, that's girl talk. Not all guys, but I know a lot of guys don't necessarily pay attention to the topic of purity because it's like, that's more of a girl thing, right? I know, especially within the Christian community. Within culture, it's just a lot of theories and a lot of things going on. I've heard men say that it is natural for a man to be more promiscuous because they're wired that way and because they're not meant and designed to be with one woman. And so women are not supposed to be promiscuous, but it's natural for men to be promiscuous. And that ideology is actually so demonic because that is not how God designed it at all. And some men might argue like, yeah, look at great men in the Bible. They had multiple wives and they had all these concubines and wives. Look at Solomon, look at David, And yes, God does use situations that are not in His perfect will. He'll still use that situation and turn it around for good. Because if we were all living in God's perfect will all the time, we would still be in the Garden of Eden. and there would be no sin in the world. But we live in a broken world. So yeah, men of God at that time, they had multiple wives and multiple concubines, but that was not God's original design. It was very clear from the beginning of the Bible that God made all these things and he said it was good, right? He made man, he made plants, he made animals, he made all these things, created the whole earth, and he said it was good. But when he looked at Adam and he saw that Adam was alone, he said it was not good for man to be alone, right? And what did he do? He brought a woman from his rib. He made Eve from his rib. He didn't have to do that. He could have just made Eve, and brought her to Adam. It was like, hey, here you go, here's your wife. But he didn't do that. Why did he make Eve from Adam's rib? I think he was symbolizing that this is a covenant of marriage and of union, that you're literally connected. You're literally meant to be one, right? And you're not meant to stand alone. And so when it comes to the situation of, men and purity, man was literally designed to have one woman, right? It was from his rib, and God made Eve and gave Eve to Adam. And so I think men not having purity and being able to control their self, especially when it comes to sexual purity, is one of the greatest things that the devil has used to destroy our generation, right? Because I personally think that a man is so powerful if he's able to control himself, control his body and his urges and his emotions. And I just feel like if a man is able to do that, and stay in purity, even if they're living in a society that seems to be against that, and there's still a man that kind of stands on that and stands in purity, I think that's just really attractive and really awesome. And so when the conversation of purity comes, it's not just about women, it's equally as important for men as well. And I know a lot of men struggle with that aspect, and I just pray and hope that they're able to learn more about not falling into the same patterns every day, but having a heart posture to seek God truly. Because when you seek God truly and want to be like Christ and want to have his mind and just want to be in his presence, he automatically breaks those things off of you that are hard to do. He breaks those chains off of you and those addictions and cycles, and he breaks that off and he gives you the strength to withhold those things. And so it's less about trying to stop different things and trying to be pure and trying to be, not do certain things. But it's more about coming into a heart posture and a mind posture, like I said, to set your mind on the things of God and seek him wholeheartedly. And that way, all these other things will be added to you. The last aspect of purity I kind of wanted to touch on is purity in the way you live your life. It goes to the theme of what I've been saying this whole podcast, of basically coming into a heart posture and a realization that seeking him is what is going to make me pure in heart, not just trying to be pure in heart by myself or trying to not do certain things so I can be pure, but really seeking God, and he's the one who is going to make me pure. And so when it comes to like living a lifestyle of purity, is like having that heart posture in every single situation you go through, right? When you go to work, do you have a heart posture of gratitude and not like, complaining all the time and gossiping about people and always so angry about the job that you pray to God for, or the school or whatever it is, whatever environment you are? What is your heart posture you take? Do you walk into an environment and do you let that environment influence you? Or do you carry a heart posture of Christ and be the one who is able to influence your environment? This is something that I try to mentally and mentally be conscious of every single day. Because when I go to work, I'm tempted to be like, I'm tired, I don't want to do this. Or if I do have, coworkers or someone that is talking about someone else, am I tempted to join in on that conversation? Or am I tempted to just be like, hey, that's not my business, like what I wouldn't say in front of everyone and the same person, like I wouldn't say that behind their back, right? And so that comes from having a heart posture of purity. And when you're constantly thinking, would Jesus do this? And just living that lifestyle of purity throughout my life and throughout my day. And in moments where I'm in traffic and someone cuts me off rudely, am I tempted to be like, if you don't get your you know what I mean? Like, I live in Texas, right? There are a lot of insane drivers in Texas. You can leave work just being tense from work and just driving on the road and being tense from the environment, and everything's happening and there's traffic and people cutting you off, people not letting you merge into the right lane, and just having that weight on you constantly. That is tiring. I would rather free that weight and free the stresses of life and the mental ping pong and battle of all these different things that I have to handle, that I have to do. When I'm in situations where I am constantly setting my mind of the things of God throughout the day. Maybe I've been listening to sermons, or maybe I've been reading my Bible, playing worship music. When my heart is set on Jesus, I'm praying, I'm just talking to God. When someone cuts me off in the middle of the road, I'm just like, okay, just go. I'm not letting that environment and the stress of life influence me. But I realize when I have times where I haven't read my Bible today, or I haven't listened to worship music or any sermons, or even prayed and really talked to God, and really be in His presence, I'm prone to letting my environment influence me. And that's ultimately what it stands from, right? And so I'm trying to make that a conscious thing every single day, to set my mind on the things of God the moment I wake up and throughout my day. And that just makes life easier. And so when God is telling us to seek His face and have a pure heart, a pure mind, a pure body, a pure lifestyle, He's not saying all these things to hinder us, like I said, or to keep us in bondage, or to just command us to obey Him at will without any reason. God has intention in doing every single thing. And if He knows the amount of hairs that is in our head, He definitely knows what is best for us. Yeah, that was my little rant about purity, because I think it's something that God has really been weighing on my heart to practice daily. And in moments and times where I just want to be myself, and I just want my flesh to give in, and I just want to be nonchalant, I just want to be a little bit rude, I just want to be angry justifiably. If you're angry, if you're irritated, all these different things, but surrendering that to God and having a pure heart to look at things definitely, number one, benefits you, but number two, strengthens your relationship and your bond with God. Because like I said, God is close to the pure in heart. Matthew 5:8, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And so thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. If you have any thoughts about purity, I know it's such a wide topic when you kind of broaden it, let me know in the comments. We can have a chit chat. A lot of you who currently watch my podcast are my friends, so feel free to text me and we can have a conversation about this. But be blessed, have a blessed rest of your week, and I will catch you in the next one.